It's a beautiful Friday morning in the city of Lagos. Good morning and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Ololade Adeomi. Let's get started as usual first with the Vanguard newspaper. It says Benue massacre. Troops got wrong intel on attackers' movement, says CDS. Survivors cry out over poor feeding, living conditions. You can find both stories on page 7 and page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper, respectively. Israel-Iran conflict, Trump to make war decisions in 2 weeks. You can find the story on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Zenith Bank, navigating CBN's prudential measures with confidence. You can find that story on page 42 of the Vanguard newspaper, away from the Vanguard straight into the Punch newspaper. As a major headline on the Punch newspaper, it says food inflation, NSA, 36 states launch joint action. Federal government, governors agree on free flow of goods across states to dismantle checkpoints, harmonize levies. Ribadu heads interministerial panel. Governors worry over World Bank funding delay. You can find that story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. On the top right corner, it says Dangote blames crude shortage as imports from US surge. You can find the story on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Israel threatens Amania after Iranian missiles wound 240. You can find the story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Away from the Punch, straight into the Nation newspaper. As a major headline on the Nation newspaper, it says Tinubu Kaduna rising again after overcoming insecurity. President inaugurates project. Kaduna will return, Tinubu says Abbas. Colonel Umar bags CFR. You can find that story on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. On the top right corner, it says Natasha's trial for defamation against Akpabio Bello begins September 23. Over 250,000 Nigerians are refugees in Libya, Cameroon, others. You can find both stories on page 3 and page 4, respectively. DHQ steps up action against killers in Benue. Akome leads peace panel. You can find the story on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. On the top left corner, it says green bond oversubscribed by 91.4 billion naira, 47.36 billion naira allotted. You can find the story on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. Let's get straight into the Guardian newspaper. On the front page of the Guardian newspaper, it says violent attacks, peacetime killings question value of Nigerian life. Experts reveal 50 million Nigerians with sickle cell, one against stigma. You can find the story on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. 1,500 killed in over 100 tanker accidents, NEMA discloses. You can find that story on page 30 of the Guardian newspaper. 6,260 terrorists killed, 5,365 civilians rescued in 2 years, says DHQ. Ibas alleges sabotage at budget defense as Senate reiterates democratic rule. Again, Tinubu inaugurates specialist hospital named after him in Kaduna. You can find this story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Tension in Benue as herdsman graze farmlands. Youth intercepts boss. You can find the story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. That's all we have on the front page of our newspapers today. Join us after the break for a brief analysis of some of our top stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, it's today in the news on Vanguard Live. My name is Ololade Adeomi. Let's get straight into the analysis. As a first story, it says Benue massacre. Troops got faulty info on herders movement, says CDS. Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa yesterday disclosed that troops received intelligence that more killer herders were on their way to some communities in Benue State in different locations, mobilized and deployed to the named communities, but on getting there, discovered the intelligence was faulty, only to learn the attack was elsewhere. He added that informants from the state also provided accommodation, feeding, and even women to the criminal elements who attacked the Yelawata community, during which no fewer than 200 persons were killed. He said that the informants also provided information that revealed the location an environment of the internally displaced persons IDP camp in Yelwata, where there was a large concentration of people, resulting in the large number of those killed. The CDS, who spoke at a meeting with the media at the DHQ in Abuja, disclosed that following Mr. President's directive to apprehend perpetrators of the Yelwata attacks, the military apparatus comprising the Army, Navy, and Air Force, as well as other security agencies, were out to get the perpetrators. He noted that the police and other security agencies put up a brave fight and neutralized some of the criminals. The CDS said when troops received intelligence that bandits were on their way to attack some communities in the state in different locations, troops mobilized and deployed to the named communities, but on getting there, discovered the intelligence was not factual, only to learn the attack was elsewhere. This is why we always say communities should provide us with information, see something, and report to security agencies. The criminals were given accommodation in the community, they were given food to eat, they were even given women before the attacks, yet the security agencies were not informed. How did they know about the IDP camp and the location in that community? They were teleguided by some persons in that community. The CDS called on the federal government to tackle the issues of porous Nigerian borders, declaring the present insecurity and challenges unraveling in the Sahel states comprising Sudan, Central African Republic, and Libya portrayed dangers to Nigeria as terrorists, bandits, and armed dealers were looking to use Nigeria because they believe Nigeria is rich with immense resources. Let's take a look into our second story. Food inflation, NSA, 36 states launch joint action. The 36 state governors have agreed to work closely with the federal government to harmonize levies, eliminate illegal checkpoints, and enhance the free flow of goods across the state as part of efforts to address food security issues across the country. This comes as the chairman of the All Progressives Congress Governors Forum and the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, stated that both the Progressive Governors Forum and the Nigeria Governors Forum agreed on the urgent need to adopt the long-standing proposal for a state-level security system to support federal initiatives. Food inflation continues to strain household incomes across Nigeria, despite a technical drop in the year-on-year national average, which stood at 21.14% in May. This sharp drop from 40.66% in May 2024 is largely due to a change in base year, which affects year-on-year comparison. However, the month-on-month rate rose slightly to 2.19% compared to 2.06% in April, reflecting ongoing price pressures on specific food items. At the sub-national level, several states are witnessing sharp increases in food prices. What is even more striking is that many of the states experiencing the highest food inflation are also major producers of food crops, highlighting a disconnect between local production and affordability. While national food inflation appears to be moderating due to statistical base effects, real-time price pressures are intensifying in several states. Supply disruptions, insecurity, and high transportation costs remain key drivers of food inflation across Nigeria. Speaking under the Nigeria's Governors Forum, led by Kwara State Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, the governor disclosed after a meeting with the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu and other key stakeholders on Thursday that widespread checkpoints, unlawful levies, and inadequate infrastructure were major factors driving food price inflation and disrupting the food supply chain. In a communique delivered by Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the NGF voiced concerns over the World Bank's failure to fulfill its funding commitment under the Nigerian Community Action Recovery and Economic Stimulus Program. That'll be all for today. Let's call it a wrap on the show. Remember, you can follow us on all our social media platforms as seen on your screen and on our website at www.vanguardngr.com. My name is Ololade Adeomi. Have a lovely day.